Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host,
Miosha.
and we're reviewing Married at First Sight season 18, episode 11. If you watch the show and you like our reviews, or if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and please meet us in the comments to let us know your thoughts about this episode. We're going to get Carla and Juan out of the way. I feel like there's never a whole lot to say about this couple. So, yeah. What do you have for them?
Not a whole lot. So it starts off at their apartment. Carla is doing a sound bath, and I think it's her sister that's come over. She tells her that she's been doing hair at her apartment and how many of her clients have followed her over the years. And so the one thing I wrote is that she's not fully unemployed in the traditional sense of she's doing these house calls or people are coming to her. She's also a Pilates instructor. I know a lot of people are like, oh, y'all are going so easy on her. But one, I don't know that she's asked Juan for any money up until this point. And two, it sounds like she still has some form of income coming in. She says
Yeah.
that she wants to be desired in her relationship. She's been doing a lot of reflecting. But that Juan, all he kind of wants to talk about is his business. She talks about how structured he is and how she could benefit from that. And at that point, I wrote, it seems as though Carla is just thinking about maybe what she can get out of this, even if it's not a romantic connection.
Yeah, about us being too easy on her. I think if Juan and Carla seem to have a better vibe, then I'd
Well,
be
yeah.
more concerned. But I just get the sense that at the end of this, Carla's gonna go and figure out her life, and it's gonna have no bearing on Juan, and he's gonna go and figure out his life. So, I mean, do I think that if there's some type of instability that she should have come on the show? No, but it just seems like she's not flying by the seat of her pants in a negative way. It just seems like she just doesn't have the structure that he has, or the type A personality and desire to plan things out as intricately as he does. I so
I
but yeah,
think it's
people were
just a mismatch. It's a
yeah.
mismatch of mindsets. In that, I
And
think some people feel like opposites attract. Uh, Maybe not in that area if they're
yeah,
so far on the spectrum. So,
I think people were saying we're easy on her because, like, oh, if this were Juan and he seemed to not have a plan,
mhm.
people wouldn't be taking it so easy on him. But I specifically remember the season, maybe it was Boston with Steven and Noy.
Oh yeah, he was unemployed.
He was not, but he seemed to have his
A
stuff
plan.
together. Like he
Hmm.
wasn't, in the situation where he didn't have a place to stay, which I think Carla, I don't know where she's staying.
Hmm.
But even in that instance, you and I were saying, okay, he seems to know what it is that he's doing, and he seems stable and secure, even if he doesn't have a traditional job at this point. And so, we've definitely tried to take each situation as it is and not just generalize. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think if Juan were in a position where it seems like, oh, he could take care of himself, but he just doesn't have a traditional job, maybe other people would criticize that, but I don't know that we would just like in a blanket way say he falls into the category where we have to judge him so harshly.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about it much at all because he said with Steve that he had been a nomad for the whole previous year before, and the only reason we even touched on finances was because Noy wanted to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I don't think we were necessarily taking sides because he was a man or a woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, Carla has the conversation with her sister,
Hmm.
and then I feel like for most of the episode, all Juan was talking to Carla about was business stuff, which I'm of two minds here.
Okay.
On the one hand, it's like, okay, is there anything else? Like, I feel like I'm back in business school, which that's where Miosha and I met, by the way. But like,
And we
is
don't
this
even talk about
marketing?
it.
a 101 or like what is going on? So I always feel like I'm back in business school when I see these two on the screen. So on one hand, I wish we could talk more about connection, but then there are those
Hmm.
couples who the basis of their relationship is career stuff. Like, oh, we like how ambitious we
Hmm.
are and we
Get
want
in
to
the
be
bag,
power
yeah.
couple and so I don't want to knock it.
I think what's off-putting is the imbalance, especially so early in the relationship. Because I think
Mhm.
in a traditional meeting, you're meeting based off of attraction and interest. And then maybe you get to those things and be like, oh, we can really vibe in that way and be
Yeah.
successful. But in their instance, they just met.
Yeah.
So you're building your relationship or attempting to build it from this business mindset. I will say though, Carla later on at their date, I think they were getting sushi and doing the Korean barbecue.
Mhm.
She bought her notebook, and so she's taking notes, picking his brain. And up until this point, I'm thinking she's like, "Oh well, let me get what I can from this
Hmm.
and apply it where it makes sense, or chew the meat and spit out the bones, and at least I get something." So she
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be off put by it at this point.
Right. And so that's what made me of a different mind. I'm like, okay, I could sit here and criticize that all they're talking about is business and finance and all that. But if she's interested in getting what she can out of this, and he seems very interested in talking about
Mhm.
this, he wants to have these types of conversations. If that's what their connection is, then who are we to judge? But I will say, I think sometimes Juan thinks, and this is normal. I think couples who've been together for ever or just for a few years, this happens. I
Mhm.
think in some instances, Juan thinks he knows the right answer.
Mm.
So Carla said something about having her own space and doing all the things in one space, as opposed to being in a spa or being in a place where there are multiple hairdressers there. And Juan thought it was a good idea for her to have a space where she could rent out to many other people. And I appreciate that he wants her to think bigger, but I think sometimes Juan might think too big prematurely, and that's probably why he's
Mhm.
in the situation that he's in, where his app hasn't taken off yet, and he's having to work so hard and put money into it. I don't think there's anything wrong with Carla starting small and then
Mhm.
building to what he's saying. So I hope that they can see each other's perspective and see the value that the other bring. It looks like she's seeing his value. I just hope that he
Mhm.
understands, hey, her wanting to start small isn't that she's a small thinker. It might just make the most sense for a comfortable life for her and then she can expand later.
As well as maybe less stress way of entry into entrepreneurial endeavors. So yeah, I
Yeah.
still don't really know fully what Juan does as well. And so
He types like
come
Thriller.
I think he's coming to her with this elevated sense of business expertise where
Hmm.
even for me I don't know that I've quite seen that.
Yeah.
So,
And we probably won't because that's not what the show is supposed to be focused
mm-mm,
on. But yeah, I thought that was cool. And then they went to the Pilates class, which it turns
mm-mm,
out Carla's business model is based off of something that she's seen. So
mm-hmm.
this other
As a
woman who she
mentor,
admires.
yeah.
Exactly. And so
So she's
it's
not that
coming from
aloof.
somewhere. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
coming from somewhere, but one is a trooper to do the Pilates with her. Pilates is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was fun to watch them do something that's a bit in her world. And I appreciated him at the end of all of this saying, I'm actually excited for her. I see the ambition in her, and it seems like he's maybe starting to see the value in her, whether that is as a friend or romantically. At the end of this, he seemed to, I don't know, she seemed to meet his approval, whatever
Yeah.
stake that holds.
And at the very end, she talked about how her main goal was to help and heal people,
Hmm.
which I think even if they were to stay together, it sounds as though their main goal or priority in even going into owning a business is
Yeah.
different. I think Juan is very much about the money. How can we grow the bag as big and as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
Versus Carla is focused on healing people and then, okay, how can I make a comfortable lifestyle for this? So, yeah, they don't even align in that way.
Yeah.
So,
And we're not saying one is right and the other isn't. It's just that they're not on the same page.
no.
Yeah. I don't have anything else on them. So, Thomas and Camille.
All right.
All right. So, Thomas and Camille, I think they start out meeting with Dr. Pepper. He comes from work and he looks so nice in his work clothes. I don't know. That makes me think about, Alicia Keys, You Don't Know My Name. Because, I look a lot different in my work clothes or whatever she says outside of my work clothes. But
Yeah,
he
it
looks
was
nice.
interesting to see him. I wonder what industry he works in because I feel like it's been a while before I've seen like that level of dress, even in the business world.
Yeah.
So
Yes. But yeah, he had his earrings in, which Dr. Pepper commented on. She's like, "Is that a Camille upgrade?" And is, but no,
he not
he
gonna
looks
take him
nice.
out.
I I don't know about you, but can you imagine coming off of work and then going into such a deep conversation, like such a heavy conversation? Like these people are putting in work, coming from their full-time jobs and then filming. I know it has to be a lot behind the scenes. So thank you guys for your commitment to our entertainment.
Especially if you're in a high stress situation in your relationship. Thomas and Camille, they're not perfect, but I'd rather be showing up to a meeting in that dynamic versus in Mimini Catchy.
I know, I know. All right, so let's get into the conversations. So Thomas talks about his father and how accountability was important to his father. And so after his father's passing, he struggled with making poor choices. Yeah, he struggled with making poor choices. And then Camille also talked about her family and her being a parentified child. I wrote that down because I hadn't heard that term. I know of the concept, but I hadn't heard that term, and so it was really nice to have verbiage for it. And then we see Camille cry for the first time on the show, which was oddly comforting for Thomas. Which, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's because she's come across, as she stated later, being able to maybe compartmentalize, as well as I think for him, he's used this journey to be so open and so vulnerable and dig into the deep parts,
yeah,
versus I think for her, a bit of her guard was still up. And now we're just starting to see the walls come down. Because as she said later, a lot of how she has maneuvered in relationships was based off of previous relationships and being able to trust that you are who you say you are and that you're not just putting on a front and
yeah,
gonna get lazy on her and switch it up. So I could understand why she's maneuvered the way that she has in the relationship so far. I
yeah.
think a lot of women can relate to that.
Yeah. And I can relate to him saying, I don't, obviously, and he mentioned this, I don't like seeing you cry, but it is just comforting to know that there are these deep emotions there and you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, especially since he's allowed himself to be so vulnerable. So, yeah, it's seemingly odd to feel like, oh, I was okay with seeing you cry,
Hmm.
but I definitely understood where he was coming from,
It's not
and
so
I
one
thought,
sided.
huh?
It's not so one-sided. Like he's opening up and
Right.
being so raw and talking about all these things, and you're just there like, oh, really?
And he's also not a vulnerable person because remember they bonded over that. So it's like I'm not usually this vulnerable. I'm crying every time we sit with the experts, like, and you're just able to hold it together. But as a viewer, it was nice to see them comforting each other in that moment. So when he started to tear up, she reaches over. When she's tearing up, he's right there rubbing her back. So yeah, this is what the people love to see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it. She did talk about. I think they read the letters.
Girl, her letter was like 2 paragraphs. Thomas pulls out this 4-page letter like he's Aaliyah. and, and Camille has like 2 paragraphs, which I'm not knocking or whatever. I mean, it's an exercise for them. So whatever each of them had to say is fine. I just thought it was funny, the contrast.
Yeah. So they read these letters. I don't have much to say on that. Do you?
The only thing I have is that I love how they use the assignment as a starting point to conversation. So it's not just, oh, the experts have assigned us this task, let's do it and then go to bed. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, the experts have assigned us this task, we're doing it, but then we're also interested in follow up questions and digging a little bit deeper. So, yeah, I enjoy how they allow the exercises to deepen their relationships. And it's not just a, okay, check, that's out of the way.
Yeah. One of the questions that he asked that I appreciated was, are there any triggers that we should be actively working on? And so I love that he's already thinking about the future and already,
Ikechi.
right,
Sorry.
already open to, okay, what do I need to be aware of as far as you? And it seems very genuine. I think some people, as we see some of the other contestants, they will feel like, oh, well, I don't want to be changed. I just want to be myself. And it's like, that's not even realistic. Y'all come from two different households, two different backgrounds, life experiences.
Yeah.
You kind of have to give someone a bit of a cheat code and trying to be understanding of who you are as a person so that they don't even unintentionally disrupt you, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
I
people
completely
want
get
things to
it.
know just to be perfect. But I don't, that's not realistic.
It's not,
Especially the
but you
older
know why?
people.
This is just me. You know why I think people hesitate to give that cheat code? It's because there's so many instances where you give the cheat code and then maybe someone in the past like takes advantage of it. And so now you're like it's a balance of who do I give the cheat code to who's not going to take advantage of it and have me out here down and out. So I can understand why people are like, okay, well, this person's gonna have to be perfect when they come to me because I don't want to open up and give them that chance of dragging me by my edges.
True. In this process, though, you signed up to be married at first sight. So,
Yeah, it just kind of comes with love, taking the
yeah,
risk. Yeah. Okay. Do we want to do David and Michelle or Allan and Madison?
we can do David and Michelle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Dr. Pepper comes to see them, which I think she did her job this episode.
Mhm.
I don't know how you felt, but usually for previous seasons, we've been saying, okay, maybe we need some new experts. It seems like the experts are doing their job. I'll say more when we get to Echi and M,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I think the experts are doing their job, which made me feel a way about something Michelle says later on. But we can start with Dr. Pepper's.
And I think we may want to, instead of saying experts, we start talking about them individually. Because I think there's been an ebb and flow of like some episodes they should, Dr. Pia can really show up and do her job. Dr. Pepper might, Pastor Cal might drop the ball. So I'm going to try my best to be specific about the things that I agree or disagree with instead of
Okay,
lumping them all together.
I'll
Because
try with you.
yeah, I feel like they may be, they're on different pages on different episodes.
Okay, fair, fair. Okay,
Okay.
so Dr. Pepper sits down with David, and this is, I guess they're waiting for Michelle to come up.
Hmm.
And he says, I've been taking some punches left and right. And, she thinks I can't provide a certain lifestyle, but he knows that he can. Like, he knows he can step up to the plate. Um, yeah, I don't know.
And when he said that, the first thing that I thought was, yes, he's living at home right now. Yes, people may be making certain judgments about
Assumption.
his situation and how he presents. But I think he's also observing her in that, well, the lifestyle you have isn't that far out of reach. It's
Because he mentioned that I'm one
like,
promotion away from making as much as you do, which I like David because he's also acknowledging, obviously, the savings wouldn't be the same, but we're not that far.
and so I kind of want to skip ahead because okay, Dr. Pepper talks about their traumas from their childhood. He talks about him being moved into the private school and what that experience was for him, being an outcast. Michelle talks about growing up poor, but I want to jump to where I think Dr. Pepper asked straight out, "What do you need to see from David?" And she says that he's 10 years behind her.
Okay. I we I think I'll have to go back, but yes. Like 10 years is wild.
So if he's 35 when this is filmed, he's he's giving 25?
Which is so funny because in her conversations with Dr. Pio, when she was 25, she wasn't where David was. So I think it was an exaggeration.
Right. And so I think they just have different perspectives. He's like, "Oh, well, the lifestyle you have, I can assimilate very easily right into that." The lifestyle, but in her mind she's like, "No, it's not possible." I think she sees it as just so far from where he is able to get to. But
And this is,
I think the
sorry.
difference is that because she grew up poor and it took a lot for her to get to where she is, it's like she maybe assumes that it would be that same thing for David. When he
Yes.
grew up middle class, his parents had the privilege, so to speak, to pull him out of a public school, put him into a private school.
Yeah.
And so for him, he's like, "Oh, it wouldn't even be that much." And even if in a worst case scenario, he'll always have, if everything fell apart, he could always go home to his parents' middle class suburban Chicago situation.
He doesn't have to
Versus
go back to the country or wherever she's from.
right. For her, if everything fell apart and she had to go back home, she would be in the small town. As she says it, I'm not saying all small towns are poor. I'm saying she says small towns where she grew up poor. So it's like a disconnect, and he don't see it as a big deal because of where he started in life,
Yes.
and she sees it as a major deal because it kind of was for her to make it from where she came from to where she is now.
It took her 10 years to get to where she is. And so she's assuming, oh, it'll take him 10 years to get to where I am now. But it's like, no, he has, he has certain privileges that maybe she didn't have coming from a small town.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm not saying that she doesn't have valid concerns, but even at this point,
oh, absolutely.
you know, and I hate to make comparisons, but I think in her mind, she's kind of giving, "I'm Stasha." Y'all remember Stasha from San Diego, who was a boss chick, building her own custom home from the
Yeah.
ground up. Yeah, in her mind, I think she's giving Stasha, "I make 500K a year. I'm a real estate investor, boss babe."
Yeah.
And for Nate at the time, that would have been a big jump. And he acknowledged that, like, yeah, it's gonna take, like, I may never get to that level. Most people
Yeah.
won't get to that level in their lifetime. But in this situation, I don't know that it's quite that. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't want what she wants, but even when she asks, like, "Oh, well, how far out are you from owning your own flat and doing this and that?" And it's like, "But girl, you don't have that."
And he doesn't even aspire to own a flat, right? He seems to be
I
more of
don't
the
know.
I aspire to own a home. So it's like even their goals are like he could look at her and think that think she's thinking small. Have you seen this thing on the internet where it's like you thinking small, you need to be thinking big. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Like that to me is what like you need to be thinking big. She thinks very small, and I don't say that as an insult at all, because I think from where she comes, like lack and the fear of lack is real. And that's why I wish Michelle were nicer, because I think so much about her is relatable. But when she acts mean, it's like, huh, I don't want anything to do with you.
It's
But
hard to have empathy.
it's so hard to have empathy for her. But like, I talk about this all the time in my regular life, like going from a place of not having, even when you do have, there's a tendency to want to hold on to everything that you have. And so David's probably, he probably seems like a huge threat to her, because she's like, I need to hold on to this stuff that I've earned. And he might be trying to take that away. Like, so there's some deep work that needs to take place there, but it to me is relatable.
But then the flip side to that, though, is that I also think, and I'm not saying she spends her money frivolously, but you know, like when people don't come from much, they can maybe be on the cheaper side or don't want to spend money. But then she likes her restaurant, she likes to travel, concerts, she likes to live her life and spend her money in the way that she wants. And some people may deem that as irresponsible. Just because you have it, that doesn't mean that you need to spend it or spend it in a certain way. So even if he did have it, their spending habits may not be aligned. So later we see her go clothes shopping for him. And I said, y'all could have just went to H&M or Zara and got this
Yeah.
done. Like,
Before we skip ahead, though, I do just, there are just a
oh,
few
yeah.
things that I want to talk about with like the Dr. Pepper meeting.
Okay.
So she asked them what strides they felt like they had made.
Oh, yeah.
And pretty much there was one, and that was communication, because before, if she was leaving, she wouldn't say anything. And now when she's leaving, she's saying, oh, I'm leaving, or hey, I won't be back tonight. So, I mean, strides are strides. A win is a win. A month in, is that the type of win we would like to see? No, but it's a win for them. We'll let them have that. So basically, her communication has improved. And so they say that, and Dr. Pepper goes, great. So what else? And Michelle's whole demeanor is like, what more do you want from me? It's like she turned into Tyrese, it seemed. And then I wanted to touch on the family conversation. So David
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about being pulled out of a public school where people maybe looked like him to going to a private school where it is just him, and he was an outcast. He was different from everybody. I want to hear more about that. Like, I wonder if his parents' motivation was, oh, we just want him to have the best education, because that could also show Michelle this is the type of family he comes from. So yeah, I wanted to hear more about that, especially, with his preference. Like, I saw people in our comments saying, oh, why are people, feeling a way about David saying he wants blonde hair, blue eye, whatever the case might be. And, everybody doesn't understand it, but when you're from different cultural backgrounds, it's something that, it's just there in the background, whether it's a huge issue for you or not. It is something that your culture probably deals with.
Right.
So it's not for everybody to understand why people are saying, well, David got what he wanted. Um, it's not for everybody to understand. If the girls that get it, get it. The girls that don't. And that's fine. But I wonder if that plays into his preference at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he got pulled into a different school where he was an outcast. Okay. I think that was all I wanted to say, except that at the end, Michelle says she feels like this is the best expert session she's had. And I was side eyeing her a little bit when she said this, because there have been I think she was just in a different space this time around to be able to receive what Dr. Pepper was saying. Also, maybe Dr. Pepper asking her and asking him to share about the childhood thing helped. But the things that Dr. Pepper did in this meeting are things that Dr. Pia has done previously, both with
Said
her
the same
privately.
thing.
Right. And come to the same, oh, there's a fear of lack here. There's a this. So she was on the after party and she said, it's always felt like someone's coming at her for what she's done wrong. And I'm like, they were still talking about you. Like, so I don't know, but
And she may have been put off by Dr. Pia showing the
Showing the
video
video.
footage of what she asked for. So
But yeah, I don't know. I was like, okay, if this the best session, that's the best session. But just play it back and realize that everybody's been saying the same thing to you, and maybe it's the best session because of where you were, or because of who was delivering the message. Dr. Pepper
oh,
is. Oh no, Dr. Pepper is older. When someone who you see as your peer
hmm
is delivering something to you, it might not be as serious,
that
but someone
respect
who is an
factor.
elder,
Hmm
so that might be it. Anyways, okay. So yeah, the shopping.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say other than this. This could have been done in a different way and probably a lot more economical. I don't know.
You know that now that you say the whole economical thing, people could look at her as irresponsible, like you said, because you aspire to own a flat, but maybe if you spent your money differently, you could own a house right now with what you spend on concerts and restaurants and clothes and hair and brows or
Yeah,
whatever.
even when people have wealth, there could be issues around how to spend it, where to invest it.
Yeah.
So, and then some people make you. She could be making a judgment of like, oh, well, you don't look like that's a whole other conversation. People who look like they have money but they don't, and versus
Yeah.
people who have a lot of money and they don't feel the need to eat out multiple times a week. They could just eat at home.
Yeah, because he cooks his potatoes and his chicken and whatever else his same meals, and I bet he saves a whole bunch of money on food.
You know what this reminds me of? This reel I've seen a few times on Instagram where it's like, oh, I when I first met my wife, I thought she was, a good spender. Little did I know she wouldn't be asking for fancy dates, but she would be going to Target every other day. Like $100 spent is $100 spent
Yeah.
or invested, right? So yeah, I just don't know that she's presented herself as the epitome of like maybe what he wants to aspire to. And I'm not saying that as anything bad against her. It's
Yeah.
just she chooses to have the lifestyle she wants to have, and that's that.
Yeah, the priorities are different. Also, I didn't, with the exception of the one blazer he put on, I didn't think the fashion was extraordinary at all. She really loved the denim on denim, and to me, that's not necessarily the most
Somebody, so
fun.
something she mentioned was, I don't know if she or him bought it up, but Drake. And I said, see, that's the light skinned black man she wanted. But little did they know, I guess when this was filmed, that was before the whole debacle happened last fall
Yeah.
with Drake. But yeah.
Anyways, that's them. Allan and Madison. Allan and Madison. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Just making sure I said it right this time. Okay. So I'm conflicted. Actually, I
Okay.
shouldn't say I'm conflicted. I think there's one big thing that we have to address, but for the most part, I think this couple is consistent. Uh, or my feelings about this couple are consistent with what they've been in the past. So Madison has the camera and she says, she and Alan went, they had a night out. She thought they had a great time, which, we don't necessarily hear from his perspective if it was a great time, but they're at the apartment and he wants to leave to go back to his place, which is 15 minutes from their apartment. She doesn't want him to drive because they've been drinking, and in her opinion, they've been drinking very heavily. He believes, oh, I can make it. I've done a drive like this several times. And she seems very unhappy with that, which I agree with her.
Yeah. Obviously, he shouldn't be drinking and driving.
Yeah.
It's stupid. No amount is safe.
But
So.
I had questions though, like, why did he have to leave? I guess he said later on that he had things to do that would be more comfortable in his own space. And I personally get that, but there's Uber there. She could ask her to take you, but could you use the extra bedroom that you guys have? So I just didn't think, as much as I like Alan, that anything he said justified him leaving that night and going to his place.
No, I don't think it does. And I have a theory, but I don't have much to back it up, but I'm still going to say it. I think so. We get from her perspective that they had a good time watching this game at the bar, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that when Alan is sober, I think he kind of knows their situation for what it is. There's the lack of attraction. And he's like, well, it is what it is, but he's trying to stay positive. I think when alcohol is introduced, I think a bit of him maybe starts to get in his feelings because I'm not quite understanding, or maybe I'm not believing that whatever this reason was that you just had to be home was legitimate. I think either something was done or said to where he wanted to remove himself, maybe not address it in that moment, but he
Okay.
wanted to remove himself to be back in his space, maybe make more of make a dramatic exit to see one to be in his own space, but also to see like would she fight for him to stay home.
She was fighting. I thought she fought enough. Like
Yeah.
how much can you fight as a
Oh
grown,
yeah, yeah,
like as
yeah.
an
Not
adult with
she can't
another adult?
physically restrain him. I just think there's something about when he drinks because a lot of their tiffs have happened. I think has been when alcohol has been introduced. Not all of them. It's a theory. I don't know, but yeah, there's something there to where he's like, I'm out of here. And even later on, where he's like, oh, well, I don't like being told what to do. I think there's more to this than what we're seeing.
Yeah. Something could have happened while they were out because it's not just when alcohol is introduced, it's also them going out together.
Outright being social. I think maybe he's
Yeah.
being triggered by seeing her interact with other people and then they don't have that. There's something else there.
Yeah.
So clearly, yeah, he should have drove home. You could have Ubered, or you could have slept in the other room.
Yeah.
There was a bigger motivation there, and I'm not sure we'll ever really quite know what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. I
So,
think, and I think I really like this season of MAFS. I think I've said it before, but I think we see, whether the couples make it or not, we're seeing some very real conversations, like some very common, maybe relationship conversations. Because if Alan's been doing this however long he's been of drinking age, or maybe even before, he's been driving and he's like, I know my limits. If he's been doing that all along, you're kind of used to doing your thing, how you do
mhm.
it, and it's not a problem for anybody because you don't there's nobody who you have to be accountable to in that way. But then when you have someone who you're in a relationship with who is severely triggered by it or even just doesn't like it, then it becomes a thing where you could be reckless if it's just you, but I'm in your life now. So if you're reckless now, that's going to have some impact on me, and I'm not okay with that. Like, if you're a single person, do you? But once I'm in the picture, you can't be acting crazy. You can't be like, I know my limits and go drive. So,
And I'm not saying that Madison has done this, but something she said later,
mhm.
I think it was the next day when they were talking, she openly admits that, yeah, I've done it too. Like I go to happy hour and I'll drive home, but it's only a few blocks. And so I'm not saying that she did this while filming. I'm just saying that she herself has acknowledged, like, oh, yeah, I've had a drink or two and then decided to drive home. And so he says, oh, I don't feel bad and I don't like being told what to do. She says she's had friends who've gotten DUIs. Yeah, yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel this way about people who don't put their seatbelts on right away. Like, like, why are we? Oh yeah, I'll put it on when we get to the stop. Do you know what could happen before we get to that four-way stop? Put your seatbelt on right now. As soon as
And
you
most
turn this car on.
right, and most cars will annoy you until you do right anyway. So why do we need to hear it beep for the next mile? We know how this goes, people.
Put the seatbelt on. Okay, so later on, Allan gets to, I think, a point where we've, I don't want to say wanted him to get to before, but
Mm.
expected him to get to. I think it's no surprise that he's saying things like, I've never had to put in so much work just to get somebody to like me.
Right.
And the truth is, outside of this process, you shouldn't ever have to put in that much work just to get somebody to like you
Hmm.
romantically or in any other way. And so I felt like, yeah, that's right, Allan, know your worth.
Oh yeah. And also because there's no progress. It'd be one thing
None.
like, oh, we started there and then okay, I'm actually able to see progress. At this point, she says she appreciates his effort and thoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm.
As he said, well, yeah, you're describing a good guy. Like most guys, you could describe your cousin that way.
I appreciate his thoughtfulness and what was the other thing? His efforts.
Uh,
I
his
appreciate it.
effort,
And I've
yeah.
never met the man in my life, which I think,
Mhm.
you know, you can't help who you're attracted to and who you're not attracted to, right? So I think outside of this process, Madison would have gone her way, Allan would have gone his way. And so I don't want to be like, oh, she should force herself to be attracted to him and all this stuff. I don't think that's necessary. I do think Madison has come in and she's, at least from what we've seen as viewers, still been pleasant. It's just the thing where I don't romantically vibe with this man, but it seems like she's putting up with the dog. It's very friendship vibes. And so I say that because I don't think she's a villain in any way. It's just that I see where Allan is coming from, and I don't want to put that effort when it's still going to be friend zone. Like,
Right. I will say for a minute, I did feel like she was kind of nitpicking, like, oh, the way he dressed and oh, he can be a little over the top. I think if you're just not attracted to someone, say that. Don't nitpick them knowing that the attraction will never grow. That's my only critique. Like, because
yeah,
because the clothes thing was kind of pointless if you knew. Let's be honest. If he looked different in those same clothes, you wouldn't make that comment. So
I
it's
don't
kind of
know.
like,
I don't know. Like, okay, so you think I'm trying to think of other scenarios. Obviously, I can't speak
if
for
I know I'm
Madison.
not attracted to someone,
Mhm.
I
Well, I
wouldn't
feel
be
like
like,
she's said that though, and she just said that was one of the reasons, or she was just listing reasons why she doesn't have that attraction to
hmm.
him. Which I don't. Maybe I'm being too easy on her, but I just don't think that's something we can fault her for.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
you fault someone for it.
Hmm.
I just think I don't know. It the way someone dresses, even how Michelle is like, "Oh, David, it's the way you dress." But it's like even if he changed the way he dressed, you're
Hmm.
still not interested.
Right.
So it's like that's where you're kind of nitpicking this person, knowing you're not going to be interested. So just say that and leave it be. If I know I'm just not attracted to someone, like say I'm like, oh, I think this person has a beautiful smile, not the body I want, whatever, but it's just the clothes, then I would say something. But if I know even if you change your clothes, even if you changed this or that, it's like how women want a man that's a certain height, right? You could change the
I don't know
clothes,
that.
you
Do
could
they?
change this, you could change that or whatever.
Yeah.
If the height is the deal breaker, then what are you even talking about?
Hmm. I'm trying.
Like
I'm trying to see it. Like, because
so.
I think it becomes a thing of why did we hear what things she finds unattractive about him? But I think on a show like this, like even Chris and Paige's season, when Chris was trying to say, "Oh, I'm just not attracted to her," they were like, "Well, what don't you find attractive?" So I feel like those questions are probably asked, and that's why we know that information. I don't
Mm.
know. I didn't see it as nitpicking. I thought it was just an explanation of why. But either way, I was satisfied this episode to see Allan say, I think it's time for me to quit because someone walking down the street who I opened the door for can appreciate my efforts and
And then,
thoughtfulness.
and then so his follow up when she says, "Oh, I appreciate your effort and thoughtfulness." He says, "Oh, that's great, but there's no level of attraction. I see how easy it is for you to hug David and be social with other people, and that level of ease is not there." So he's seeing what he needs to see, and that's why I go back to at that bar where they were watching football or whatever. Everything went great or fine.
Yeah.
Did it?
For you, because somebody was there who maybe you were chopping it up with. Yeah. And now this is where, in my opinion, she should have just said, no, there isn't attraction. Because he said, is there anything that you find attractive about me? And she's
That's a
like,
weird question.
I guess that's such a weird question. I don't think that's Sister Madison, I don't think that's a weird question at all. I think we would like to know. Is there anything you find attractive about this man? And he would like to know because he's putting in, his effort, and I don't know, him getting his feelings every once in a while to me is just normal.
And that's
I don't
why
think
I
it's a big
think
deal.
when it's like when they're having the conversation one on one, he seems to be level headed and just trying to get her to just say it and own it. But
Yeah.
I think when they're going out, they were around other people, they're drinking, something's triggering to him where he's like, bump it, I don't care.
And I felt like, Dr. Pepper said something about, well, she's giving you clues and you have to see that. And I don't think anybody watching this show is just like, oh, Madison is so dismissive. I think she's trying to be amicable with Allan. Do I think she's trying to build romance with him? Not necessarily. So when Dr. Pepper said that, I'm like, yeah, maybe she's giving clues, but we're adults. And a part of maturity is you just got to say some things with your chest. You can't be beating around the bush. It's not, I mean, I guess so. That's a weird question. It's no. And it's okay. Like, it's okay for you to say to Allan, he's a big boy. He's a grown man. It's okay for you to say to him, no, I'm not attractive. I'm sure there are other people who find him attractive, find him funny, find his way of dress attractive, his hoopty, as he likes to call it. I'm sure there are people who do so. He's a grown man. He can accept that you, one woman of many, might not be attracted to him because there will be others who will. He should be the one saying stuff like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's Hennessy and Coke. He should be the one saying that, not other castmates.
Especially last week when he tried to talk about it, it was, oh well, today's the anniversary date or whatever. Yeah, he's been trying to get you to be more forthcoming about this, just
Yeah.
to see if he's spinning his wheels. So
Yeah. And then at the end of this, I did appreciate him saying, okay, I realized that Madison's mother was an alcoholic, I believe. So I think it's triggering for anybody, the whole drink, or for a lot of people, the whole drinking and driving thing, but probably more so her with that background. So I appreciated him saying, he said something that was so sweet. He said, I want to give you that sense of security. I was like, that's so nice. And I hate that
he,
it
he
was,
wants to do right by her.
yeah, I hate that it's
It's pointless.
I don't want to say wasted on Madison because I think it's good for Madison to see that, hey, there are people out there who will try for me and who will like me and want to make efforts. Like, I think every woman should feel that way, but also, because I'm big on reciprocity and because I know the sweet things that Allan does or says won't be reciprocated, I'm kind of like, those sweet words are wasted on Madison a little bit. Okie doke.
I think that's it.
To Echi and M. I disagreed with a lot when it came to these two. I disagree with everybody. I disagreed with MM. I disagree with, of course, Akechi. There's not much we could ever agree on. And the experts. But I appreciated Pastor Cal's meeting with him because man to man, cut the
He
bull.
tried.
Cut the bull. Like,
Yeah.
he's sticking to that story. It didn't matter who it was. It's like, no, it did matter who it was. That's why she went in and told the experts what she was looking for. But yes, whoever they matched her with, she was going to give her 100%. And that's what viewers like to see in this process.
I agree. Yeah, he just continues to confirm that he's not here actually for marriage. He starts off the conversation though, trying to convince Pastor Cal that Imim is doing all these things to make him feel small. Pastor Cal said, "Hey, let's keep it real, man to man. What is you moving out a sign of?" He says, "I'm not comfortable in this space, and it doesn't feel like my wife." And that it's been going on since we got back from the honeymoon. But he never says exactly what is she doing.
Because he doesn't know how to answer
And when Pastor Cal is like, okay, well, he says to Pastor Cal, hey, it wouldn't have mattered who she was matched with. He says, well, she was matched with you. We matched y'all. We did a lot of the legwork to ensure that y'all were compatible. He keeps over talking Pastor Cal. I don't know if you saw that, but it was almost as though he really didn't want Pastor Cal to get a word in because he was trying to manipulate him, essentially.
Yeah. He said, this is what tripped me out. Who asked someone they just met to move into their apartment? Pastor Cal was like, I mean, we encourage that because we match people for marriage. So yeah, we would encourage you to talk about, hey, after this, would you? And I would, if I were a mem, I would ask that too. Would you be comfortable moving to my apartment? Because I'm not moving to your
Every
place.
season, it's a point of conversation. Okay, say we make it through this.
Yeah.
Would you move in with me? Would I move in with you? Would we try to get a new place?
Yes. Have you watched the show that you tried out for multiple times, Ikechi? Because
Multiple
that's
times.
it's almost like that's the point. she's doing what she's supposed to do.
And this is a small detail, but he says, now keep in mind, we all saw how he was interacting with her on the honeymoon. Super hugged up, super close. Oh, y'all, we're going to be the it couple. Oh, well, 2 days into the honeymoon, she asked, hey, you want to take a shower with me? He's like, who does that? Anybody who thinks that you're vibing with them in that way. So it's not even, this actually started day one of the honeymoon. Not even when they got home. I think when they got home, I think it hit him like, oh, something's really wrong. But for him, it was day one of the honeymoon because if day two, you're already turned off, yet you're acting as though you're into her in public. Nothing Imim did. This is before y'all moved in. You saw her place. It started day one of the honeymoon.
Yeah, so he said she makes me feel small like I don't have enough. Does she do that or do you already feel that way? But
Now, okay, I'm going to say this. As hard as this is to watch this play out for Imim, I'm kind of glad that it's being televised because I think many high earning and achieving women, specifically Black women, a lot of times are pressured into, oh, well, you're not giving enough men a chance, or you're all about the money and the education. He may not have as much as you. And the response I hear from women is, yeah, but a lot of men can't handle. This is a prime example. Let it be known. This is what women are talking about when they say, hey, I don't mind giving someone a chance, who doesn't have as much education or me or doesn't earn as much. But this is what I'm being met with. Ikechi is what a lot of high earning and achieving women are being met with, where they may talk a good game, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of manipulation, belittling.
belittlement.
Yeah. And we even saw how Ikechi was willing to put on a good front until he just couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah,
So I just want to put that out there.
that's
This is
good.
an example of that.
So Ikechi, who doesn't plan anything, is mad that Imem always has a plan that she wants to carry out. It's like, okay, try to keep up. He said, have I disrespected her? Not once.
And I love how Pastor Cal was like, Are you sure about that?
It's like, now hold on, because when someone said, now hold on, because did you call her an a-hole? If someone's acting like an a-hole, I should call. Okay, lack of self-control. I was still, yeah. Anyway, so he still didn't say what MM did to make him feel small. And I think, like, someone commented last week and said, oh, he just doesn't like her. He's not insecure. And I would beg to differ. I think there's a lot going on there. I think there is a lot of insecurity in him thinking of himself as small, but yeah, it
I would
also could be that he doesn't like her, and that's
I
fine.
would buy that it was a thing of him just not liking or being attracted to her if he wasn't saying so much. He's letting us know. There's no guessing.
Yeah,
He says that he feels small, but he can't say what she's done to make him feel small.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Her mere existence and them being together makes him
Makes him
feel
feel
small.
small. Yeah. So
So,
Mem has a sit down with Dr. Pia, and she says, "Yeah, I simply think he's not ready. That's what I think this is. He's just not ready," and that she wants to have a conversation with him. I I thought it was going to take a specific turn when Dr. Pia asked, "Well, why do you still want to be with him?" It didn't take the turn that I had hoped, but I appreciated that question because of Mem. Why do you still want to be with him? He's there's nothing, there's not a warm, safe, secure, comfortable space for you here. So why do you want to subject yourself to this? And she really needs to consider.
and I think this, unfortunately, I don't want to say proves him right to a certain extent, but I think she came in with the right attitude. But now that you've seen the mask slip, why does he need to be your husband?
And
Nothing wrong
stop
with the
calling
way
him that too. Stop it. Did I say that last week? I feel like I've been saying it every week. Because stop calling that man your husband.
she says,
Call
"Oh,
him a
I
husband
want
when
to
his
be my
actions give
husband."
husband. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want. He doesn't call her his wife.
Does he call her anything? Her. He calls her pronoun.
That that an object.
Anyway, so I put here, of course, I don't love men being held accountable. And it's not that I don't want women to be accountable. It's that I think in this episode, Dr. Pia's advice was great for a woman who is in a relationship with a man who actively wants to be in a relationship with her. Like if Dr.
Right.
Pia said those things to me or to you, I would be all for it. Like, yes, I do need to lead with feelings. I mean, lead with facts and not feeling, or lead with feelings and not facts, whatever it was.
Yeah. Lead with
Like,
honey.
yes, I do need to be honey. But the thing is, a mem will benefit from that advice in her future relationship with a man who is all about a mem, but that advice is not applicable to this situation. And I think a mem receiving that advice and then wanting to apply it to Ikechi could be dangerous and maybe will make for good television, but I think it'll be hard to watch for, like, particularly black women, or women in
Yeah,
general, but particularly black women.
you're right. Something that Dr. Pia said, she says, like, you don't know this man, but you keep saying, my man, my man, my man. I will say she kind of knows enough, though. She doesn't know him fully, but from what she's seen of him,
Yeah.
I think she knows enough to
Yeah.
feel
You don't need to
like
know
she should,
everything.
yeah, so that she can remove herself from the relationship. She says, "Oh, you need to be malleable to your husband's needs." Problematic in this situation.
Yes.
Very big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and I think maybe calling him her husband is the only thing that's keeping her still trying. That's the only thing, like, that keeps her coming back. Oh, he's my husband, so I should try. But you don't always have to come back. It's okay to quit on things sometimes.
And I think maybe her willingness to try and to make this work is linked to how she likes to achieve things, where she may not even really want him like that, but because of this desire to achieve and attain great things, she
Yeah.
doesn't just want to throw in the towel. Clearly, she's hardworking, she's diligent, she's all those things, but maybe she still needs to learn that you don't have to apply that level of trying to situations like
To
this.
everybody. Oh my gosh. I used to like think, oh, am I non-committal? Because like when you spot things early on
Hmm.
and you're like, I don't think this really gels well with me. And I think, maybe before you fully know yourself, you think, oh, am I not giving this person enough of a chance? Like even her saying something like, oh, I still want to be with him because, maybe he's doing this as a defense mechanism. Yeah, he
Hmm.
is, but that's not your work to do. Especially like you can do life alongside people, but you can't do life for them. You can take a horse to the water, and I don't even think it's her job to take that horse to the water. You could meet the horse at the water and be like, "Oh yeah, I'll help you get a drink if that's what he's already trying to do." But
Hmm.
you should not take on that responsibility and excuse bad behavior. That someone should be working on themselves. Like if they don't want to work towards resolution within themselves, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I feel like we women can be quick to give people like the benefit of the doubt. And all I can say is that's why we have all these crazy story times on TikTok. All this
Oh,
benefit of the doubt.
RIP TikTok.
I know,
She
no
about to go on
more.
to glory in the US. But
Listen.
anyways, Akechi in his diary or confessional said something like, I may have done some wrong, but there's no but. He talks about how, well, all this talking about this over and over. And that's how I know he hasn't had any substantial relationships, whether
Mm-mm.
friendship or romantic, but especially romantic, because it's all about talking about things. Like you might talk about it today, you think about something else, now we have to talk about it again. 6 months from now, something might happen that rehashes it, and we have to constantly work towards a
Mm-hmm.
resolution. And so that's what being in something long term. It doesn't always have to be hostile. Like you could talk
Mm-hmm.
about things repeatedly and it's not hostile. It's just, oh, there's a new bump in the road or something changed and now we need to make sure we smooth that out.
Yeah, that's what partnership is.
Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so Pastor Cal and Dr. Pia sit down with them. And, and Pastor Cal says we need to rediscover value here. I was laughing because comedian Jasmine W.
Mm-hmm.
She's always talking about Ikichi in that book bag. She like, here you
Oh,
go with that backpack.
you know what? I'm just not gonna comment.
He want to be Dora the Explorer so bad. Backpack. That is so funny. I mean, it's a cute backpack, but every time I see it, I think about her
And where is he
commentary.
going with a backpack that big? Like, are you backpacking through Asia? Like, what is going on here?
Always has that backpack. But anyway, Pastor Cal
Mm.
talks about how they've been doing this for 18 seasons, which that's not the
Don't brag.
that's yeah, that's not the accomplishment you think it is because y'all don't have a lot of couples to show for it. We have more Love is Blind couples still married today than Married at First Sight,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Check the math on that. Y'all fact check me. But anyway, so I don't know. Ikechi says that he likes things a certain way. He sees getting to know somebody a certain way, and I put, how about you initiate things that you want to do to get to know her?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think this also goes back to his lack of relationship. He's lazy. If you're just out having fun in the dating world, you don't have to do much. And given the way that things are in terms of the numbers game, imagine being a single black guy, whether in Houston or Chicago, between ages 30 and 40. You probably don't have to do a whole lot to have fun. So,
Okay. So Anyway, I think the entire time Ikechi didn't really agree much with their assessment of him, but he just sat there and took it. He said he wants someone. I think he said to have a desire to see how I am. And so I'm like, okay, why do you think she's asking questions? You know, like there are multiple ways to get to know people. And so it's like, is she now allowed to ask you questions to get to how you are or who you are? I don't know.
And I will say, I think under normal circumstances, yes, you probably wouldn't be rushed into asking all the questions and figuring all this out. But you actively chose to sign up for this twice. You're already married. And so you don't have the luxury of taking your time. Isn't that what you've been doing for the last 12 years? You've had the time to date people in a traditional sense. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. So when you choose to do this process, it is with a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
Now you want to take things slow now that you got accepted into the process.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And I wish the experts would have held him accountable to that and that you came to us twice. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So at the end, she asks him to move back in, which couldn't pay me to do that. So I disagreed with her there. I understand you're willing, but give him a chance to show his willingness too, and then you can reciprocate. I think for my dear sis MM, I think just learn how to reciprocate. Let him have a chance to start things out if he wants to. If he doesn't, just be okay with it at this point because your king is out there. What would you think about Mem and Allan?
mm, I don't know. I see both of them as wanting to be married and in a long term partnership. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they would click or vibe. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought
Okay.
about them in a relationship
Oh
standpoint.
no, I'm
One thing I
thinking
wanted
about
to
it. Go ahead.
one one thing I wanted to call out though about Ikechi is that his one last thing that he did to set the tone for how they'll move forward is I think the experts asked him like, is there a way to move forward? He just looks at her and she's the one who's like, will you move back in? So
Mm-hmm.
once again, she's on a hamster wheel to convince this man that he should want to be married to her.
Yeah.
I hate it.
And then he said, "I'm not excited, but I'm willing." In his confessional. Just check out. Go ahead and clock out for me.
And I didn't like how Dr. Pia boiled it all down to miscommunication. Call
Yeah.
a thing a thing. There's a lot of manipulation, there's lying, there's gaslighting. It's all the things that are happening here. And
Yeah.
y'all are experts with the education. So call it for what it is instead of just trying to keep her a part of this process. Because now it's not even just on Ikechi, it's also on them too for how the rest of this will play out. So.
Yeah. So that's what I think. I think Alan and Amem, if I could put people together, I would like it. I think he's secure in himself. He, seems to be well off financially. So her success probably wouldn't intimidate him. I think they definitely have a friendship vibe. So I don't know if there's any promise to anything romantic,
Yeah, I could
but
be friends. Yeah.
I would. I
I'm gonna think on it.
Okay, and you guys, y'all in the comments, think on it too, and let me know if you see like Alan and the mem, if that could be a vibe. Also, I think we see like David and Madison being a vibe. I hesitate to think they're the couple that like
Mm.
cheats or whatever. Okay, I feel
Because it would
like
be
David is
obvious.
David is such a bro though. So I don't know that he would do that to
Mm.
Alan. And that's the one thing that's giving me some pause. I also don't think Madison would want to do that to Michelle. So I think maybe once their marriages are over, I
Mhm.
could see them together, but I don't see them cheating during the process. At least
Then
not
who
yet.
is it? Who is it
I
then?
don't know. I hope it's a Mem and Alan. That's what I'm hoping for. 'Cause
Mm.
who do they
Yeah.
have loyalty to? Well, I
Oh
guess
yeah.
a Mem
And
to
if it
Madison,
is
but
him,
Madison's not.
if it is him, I would feel no way about their partners. I wouldn't even care. Whatever.
It
Y'all didn't
needed to
want them
happen.
anyway. So
It's
nothing
for
to
the
talk
greater
about
good.
here. Yeah, whatever. So yeah. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I'm gonna think on it from a
Okay.
romantic standpoint.
We'll get your
Okay.
answer next week.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for next week's episode. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right. But you guys let us know in the comments what you thought about all of the couples. We look forward to reading them, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.
Bye.